time on the panel. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God, we're CNN. No.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Oh, okay.
Now we're good.
We are live. Hello, everybody, at QuaranCon. This is the Superhero Stories panel. And like I usually say, if it's a in-live person convention, like if you're not here for the story, you know, superhero story convention, please stay. But I'm pretty sure if you're in the room, then you're here for the panel. So I'm not going to worry about that part. So I am Trish Heinrich. I am your moderator for the next hour or so, and we're going to be talking superhero stories with actual superhero authors. It's very exciting.
Woohoo!
So usually I'd go down the line, but we're not really sitting at a table, so I'm going to call your name, and you can give us the bio that you have prepared. So we're going to start with Jeremy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Flagg. My superhero work is writing the Children of Notre Dame universe, which is kind of a little bit of a sci-fi dystopian near future superhero story. No capes and cowls. I'm strictly a leather jacket and t-shirt kind of guy for my superheroes. And my upcoming series is going to be a prequel to that, which takes place in the 40s. So playing with time all over the place.
Nice. Taylor, why don't you go next?
All right, I'm Taylor Elwood, and I have a trilogy out that's called Learning How to Be a Hero Trilogy, which is about a character who doesn't initially know how to fly all that well and needs some help learning, and goes from there on to some wacky, hilarious adventures. And I'm working on the sequel trilogy, which is Learning How to Be a Villain. And you can learn more at the Imagine Your Reality website, www.imagineyourreality.com.
Nice. I love the title, Learning How to Be a Villain. I love that. I'm like, ooh, I want to know how to be a villain. All right, Michael, you're up next.
Me. Hi, I'm Michael Daly, career writer for about 22 years now, independent author for the last 7 or so. I'm the author of the Action Figures Young Adult Superhero Series. Book 9 dropped a couple months ago. Currently working on book 10 because, like a lot of people, I have a lot of time on my hands now. And to give the website a quick plug, innsmouthlook.com if you want to harass me online.
Nice. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yep. I'm Matt. I've written a few superhero books, starting with the Circle War series, which sort of set up the rest of the universe that I want to tell my stories in. Most recently, I wrote Prism, which was the first sort of solo book after the Circle War series. When I'm not writing superhero books, I also write for video games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And as far as websites go, it's kingwrites.com if you're interested. But that'll have links to all the books in there.
Awesome. Karen, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Karen Diem, and I write the ARCA superhero urban fantasy series. Basically, I follow the adventures of Zeta Garcia as she crashes through and basically fumbles her way through being a superhero. It's a little more tongue-in-cheek series, but it's a lot of fun in my opinion anyway. Not that I'm at all biased.
Not at all.
If people want to find out more about it, they can go to my website, www.karendiem.com. And I've got descriptions of my books and first chapters up for everybody to read. And my next book is coming out May 5th. So like next week.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
I'm really excited. Toga took a while to write.
Yeah, I'm working on a book that feels like that right now. And I'll go a little bit last just to introduce myself really quickly. I am also a superhero author. I write the Vigilante superhero universe. The first trilogy is complete. You can find that on Amazon and on Kindle Unlimited. And the second series just launched a few weeks ago. And the second book in that series should be out this summer. You can find not only me, but all of us here at superherofiction.com. That's superhero/fiction.com. We have almost 300 books on the website. We also have a podcast. We have a monthly newsletter that tells you all the new releases. So if you absolutely love superhero stories like we do, you can go there and find all of these lovely authors' books there, plus everybody else. So please check that out at your convenience. And don't forget to visit the virtual Artists Alley on the QuaranCon2020 website when we're done here. And you can find my virtual table and a lot of other amazing independent business owners, artists, authors, you name it. Okay. So let's talk superheroes. And I don't know if you guys know this, like I just saw this while I was watching the Roswell reboot at lunch, because yes, I do that. It's National Superhero Day today. I did not know that.
Now, like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
I feel like a bad geek.
So it's awesome that we are talking superheroes on National Superhero Day. I'm loving it. So the first thing I want to ask is, why do you guys think we love superheroes? Superheroes have been around for almost 100 years. They've never really lost popularity. Why? Why is this just a national love affair that we have with superheroes? Who wants to jump in?
And a hush falls over the.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for somebody to call our name.
Okay.
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Go, Taylor.
I think that the reason why people love superheroes, I mean, certainly why I love it, is that superheroes are the modern mythology of our times. I mean, you look at ancient cultures, they had mythology that explained, why things happened. And that's something that in our modern culture, we don't have as much of. And so where do we find that? We find that in comic books, we find it in movies, we find it in literature that we read. And so superheroes are our modern gods and goddesses, our modern mythology that speaks to the things within ourselves that we want to see. It speaks to the better world and to the values and things along those lines. At least for me, that's what it comes down to.
I would agree with a lot of that, actually. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, I would actually jump on that and say that this in a universe where we're all very, very different, different religions, different ethnicities, different geography, all of this stuff. We have this collection of a mythos that transcends a lot of that and has it started in a very small region, but now it's become universal. And once upon a time when we were younger, reading comic books was still that geeky thing that you tried to hide so you didn't get beaten up. And now we were trendy before it was trendy. And now with all the movies coming out and the TV shows and just the complete media bombardment, now it's gone from this secret activity to now it's part of our shared experience. I watched the Endgame, the moment where, spoiler alert, Captain America picks up the hammer.
Mjolnir.
And so
Come on, man. Come on. Bring your A game.
Yeah.
This crowd is going to get you if you get something like that.
That thing that Chris Evans and Chris Pratt and somebody else did. So
Oh my God. I'm so embarrassed.
And so the greatest thing about it was the moment when he picks up the problem is I can't say
meow meow. Just call it meow meow.
Meow, meow.
It's acceptable. It's canon.
So the people recorded in 100 different theaters the same reaction in every theater, that the moment when it was picked up, and we had been waiting for 10 years for that very obscure moment, and in every theater it was the same thing, and that was a collective event that we all shared together. So now we're in this together, which is kind of cool.
Michael, Matt, Karen, do you guys have any thoughts about this?
I just think back to when I was a kid, started reading the comics. I appreciated them on a very superficial level at the time. It was cool costumes. The bad guys were kind of scary monsters very frequently, and I was a big monster movie fan at the time. And it took me a while to appreciate some of the underlying themes, the nuances. But nowadays, the thing I like about superheroes as an overall concept is the idea that these are people who have the ability to make the world better. And that is ultimately their driving goal. They have different individual motivations, but it's ultimate, they're all working towards the same goal, which is to just make the world a better place. And I tend to gravitate towards heroes who do that for the sake of it. I'm gonna name drop Kamala Khan, the current Ms. Marvel. I fell in love with her right away because she wanted to be a superhero just because she could, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I love that throwback. There was no dark, angsty tragedy in her background driving her. She was just a good kid who wanted to be a good person.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I totally agree. I think that is my favorite kind of hero too. The kind of hero that wants to be a hero. You know, and to go back to what Taylor said, I totally agree that this is also sort of our modern mythology, and that's part of what makes it so appealing. But it's also that these heroes a lot of times represent ideals that we want to see in ourselves. So in a way, they're representative of kind of what we want to be. So so we gravitate toward these people, and yeah, we want to see ourselves in them, and the best heroes, I think, do that. They are sort of mirrors of our best selves.
Absolutely.
I have
Karen?
to pretty much agree. I mean, why were Robin Hood, Hercules, and even Beowulf big names? Superheroes are a more modern iteration of the classic heroic figures, especially the vigilante sort like Robin Hood. Their wish fulfillment wrapped in power to those who might not have it otherwise. Everyone loves a vigilante who's on their side, unless they're J. Jonah Jameson, but we can all agree he has issues.
I love, you went from Robin Hood to J. Jonah Jameson. Oh my God, I love that, Karen. I love it so much.
Now I want to see J.K. Simmons playing Robin Hood.
That would be spectacular. I love that. I couldn't agree more with you guys. Anybody have any last thoughts before we move on to the next question? Anything at all?
The other piece to it is, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate with it. We get to see not just the best version of ourselves, and don't get me wrong, you're Superman, you're Captain America, like you get to see like, wow, if I was really righteous, I could be that. Whereas I like to think, well, what if I had superpowers and became a villain? And you get to have like this weird, comfortably safe fantasy of, what if I just wanted to destroy the world? Well, hopefully someone wouldn't come around and stop me, but now I see all the mistakes they made. And you kind of get to play out, you know, when you were little, cops and robbers, but now they're super powerful beings. And, you know, I'm not going to say that everything about my life is, you know, sunshine and rainbows. Like I like myself a dark villain.
That brings up a really good point. Villains that are relatable. I would say that's another thing probably that superhero stories give us, is when it's a really good villain whose aims we can understand, like Killmonger in the Black Panther movies. It can sometimes show us the fact that there are very few easy choices in life, and that even the bad guys have a point sometimes, and that even the good guys screw up. And that can be really comforting, that thought that even these heroes that we idolize, they don't always get it right. They're not always completely maybe on the right side. I don't know. I find that kind of comforting sometimes. I want to pause really quickly and acknowledge that we have a couple people in the comments. I see you, Misty and William. Welcome to the panel. I am going to go ahead and throw your questions up. I am going to get through a couple of questions with the panelists, and then we're gonna like check out and see if you guys have anything that you want to add or ask. And we'll take a little break in my questions to ask yours, and then we'll go back to mine. So just letting you know how you guys know how it's going to work a little bit. There's also a 20-second delay between what you guys are seeing on YouTube and what we're actually talking about. So if it feels a little weird in terms of like, I don't know, matching everything up, that's probably why. So anyway,
It's
guys,
time
welcome.
travel.
It's time travel, exactly. Love it. All right, so
Superpowers are a requirement of superhero authors, you know.
it's
right.
true. We just don't talk about it a lot, but yes, we all have those.
It's
First
time to
rule
break
of-
the code of silence.
You have this fantastic dry sense of humor, Kara, and I am loving it. So outside of the big four, we're talking like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Captain America. What other superheroes have influenced your storytelling? And I'd like to start with, since Karen was kind of the last one to answer the last question, I'd like to start with Karen this time. So what supers besides the big four have influenced you as a storyteller?
The hot seat. I've always loved Nightcrawler and found him inspiring. He was a Christian character who actually tried to live by his faith and kept up hope for the best, even in some really messed up situations. I also, even though I only caught bits and pieces of it in syndication, was really influenced by The Greatest American Hero.
That is so cool.
The whole hapless hero thing really worked for me. I mean, how can you not like someone who tries to do the right thing? He put up with crashing into like everything between him and his objectives and doing it in tights. They should give him awards just for that outfit. You know,
You are so right.
Those would probably be a couple of the bigger ones for me.
I cannot tell. I did not expect The Greatest American Hero to enter the conversation. This is fantastic.
No, but I'm glad it did. I totally forgot about it.
Matt, why don't you go next? What supers have influenced you?
God, well, as far as characters go, I would say Spider-Man is the biggest influence on me. And then as far as stories
Spidey.
as a whole, yeah, I love Spider-Man. Stories as a whole, probably Avengers. I love team stories, and I love telling the stories of the individuals that eventually end up being a team story. So that's kind of how my books usually go. And sort of a last entry there is Jason Aaron's Thor series. I thought was outstanding. So that's been a recent influence, I'd say.
Okay. Who wants to go next? I don't have to pick. You guys can fight it out.
We'll go in order of hairiness from sveltest to hairy.
Okay.
It makes as much sense as anything. In terms of what I'm writing now, I'm drawing a lot on the Teen Super Teams, New Mutants, Teen Titans, the Runaways, the Champions. I feel like the young characters are, in their way, the most representative of superhero ideals, because they tend to be these very idealistic characters who are competent enough to do their job well most of the time, but they're young and screw up a lot and have to work around their own age-based inadequacies, their own lack of experience and wisdom, and rise above it. I'm even going to count the cast of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in that, because if you consider Buffy as a superhero, the rest of the Scooby Gang was her team, and that had a lot of the same trappings. That was probably one of the more direct influences on me, in fact, in terms of not just the overall tone and theme, but the group dynamics, and the fact that they occasionally dealt with some very realistic, down-to-earth problems, which I think humanizes the characters a lot, not just for young readers, but for older reader to actually remember what it was like to be a teenager and constantly screwing up, even though you were legitimately trying your best.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Jeremy, do you want to go next?
Sure. I would say for an individual, it's probably going to be a character like Colossus, who reluctantly takes on the role, doesn't want it at all. There's no reason other than this sense of duty, and frequently walks the line of, I don't want this, but I owe it to the greater power to keep going with it. And even the familial obligation of, you know, protecting the younger sister and the family. But overall, I love this idea that this gentle giant is one of the most destructive characters in Marvel. But as an overarching team, I would say it's absolutely X-Men. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to that, but it would be specifically Joss Whedon's run of the new X-Men, because the writing in that was super snarky, super sharp, and like the banter between like Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost, where Kitty Pryde basically tells her, you know, you're a massive whore, go away. And you think you just said that to, you know, Emma Frost, and like the banter in the play kind of took like these super serious storylines and made them kind of snarky. And, you know, I love a character that can be serious when need to, but at the same time, you know, has no problem rolling their eyes at the problem.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably why I like Buffy so much, because she's very much like that. Taylor, how about you? What supers have influenced you as an author?
Definitely the X-Men. I like the X-Men quite a lot. I like the different storylines and the experiences, but I also like Green Lantern. I've always found Green Lantern to be really interesting, especially the exploration of will and fear and other emotions and things like that. And then Batman. And Batman, and in Batman's case, because here's this person who doesn't have superpowers, and yet he basically manages to be sometimes the most powerful hero there is. You know, he can outwit and beat Superman on occasion. So, you know, he's a pretty interesting fellow, because he shows the capability of being that being a superhero isn't necessarily about the power. It's about what you have with your resources. Granted, having a lot of money helps too.
Yeah, exactly. That is an interesting point, though. The vigilante hero. I think, Karen, you brought up when we were in the first question talking about Robin Hood and the appeal of vigilantism, and how it really is. That's probably the most accessible type of superhero for all of us. Is this idea of being able to go out and hands-on make a difference somehow. Like all of us have probably had that fantasy of, you know, being able to just punch that guy or that person that's just really, you know, but not you, Jeremy.
Just go do it.
Go do it.
I'm a superhero. Like, no superheroes go to jail.
I know, that doesn't happen. Arrow on the CW. No.
Punisher in the Stephen Grant, Mike Zeck miniseries.
Yeah, you just plot your way around
it. Okay, after this next question, I'm going to we have a couple of questions in the comments, so I'm gonna do one more mine, and then I'm going to go to the comments for a couple of those questions. So this next one is kind of fun. What was your superhero first love, and how did you meet? And I'm going to start with Matt on this one.
Oh, well, okay. I didn't consider this to be a romantic question, but
no, it's not.
No, I'm kidding. Okay.
Okay.
This is going to get saucy.
This is going to be interesting.
Things are going to get weird. Get ready. So
we're superhero authors. It's already weird.
I know, it's already weird.
Well, hang on. I got to rewrite my answer. If that's the direction we're going.
Yeah. I hate to repeat myself, but it was Spider-Man. I mean, that's what got me into the superhero genre, and it was the old school, like, live action Spider-Man.
Like the original 1970s live.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm 1,000 years old, so yeah, it was.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's
going
back.
That's going way back. so yeah, that got me into the character. And then there was also the cartoon, watching the reruns of Spider-Man and Super Friends or whatever. And, then it continued into the 80s with, Superman and then Batman. And then, the X-Men sort of led the dawn of Marvel in the 90s. So, but it all started way back when on that terrible TV show.
Can I
back
ask
in the 70s.
a follow-up question really quickly? And I might do this to a few of you, so be prepared. What was it about Spider-Man? Can you put your finger on it? If not, that's totally understandable. I get that. But was there something about Spider-Man in particular that you were just like, oh my God, I love this?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's great about a lot of the, my favorite characters or people's favorite characters in general is that you can relate to them. And Spider-Man was very easy for people to relate to, especially me. I mean, it's he's this, smart ass kid, which is kind of what I was, growing up and still am at heart. And, so automatically I, saw myself in that. And then, he's just somebody who wanted to be good. He's somebody who had, all these powers, and I'm not going to repeat the line, but, he felt that responsibility and he wanted to be a hero. But I love that he wasn't like the perfect hero. He was, he wasn't always good at his job. And that really appealed to me, like that type of character. I loved it.
I love that. That's great. Taylor, what about you? You're next. What was your superhero first love?
It was Batman, actually. It was the 1980s movie with Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and it was really a combination of Batman and the Joker that made it, because for me, I found myself identifying with both characters. Joker was the raw chaos and kind of thriving in that. Of course, he's an evil character, but at the same time, there's something to be said for that, the sheer joy and chaos in the moment of just being, doing utterly chaotic things and messing around with stuff. But then there's Batman, on the other hand, who represents the flip side of that. And I mean, really, when you look at the comics and the stories, they really are the flip side of each other. They're always balancing each other out. And so that was a fascinating story that drew me in. And then from there, I went on to everything else that I've come to love and enjoy about superheroes.
So it was the Michael Keaton movies that you really. I have to admit, he's my Batman. Like, Michael Keaton will forever be my Batman. I adore that man. All right, Karen, you're up next. What was your superhero first love, and how did you meet?
Well, we both reached for the same Star Trek novel at the same time. Just kidding.
No, keep going. I want to hear the rest of the story.
You had to buy the book.
That's a great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
I'd have to say I probably came in through television. So it was, and I don't know which one I saw first, because we didn't have like cable or anything. So it was very much whatever networks wanted to show. So it was either Wonder Woman with Linda Carter or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as what I liked was, here are these people trying to do the right thing, despite it being kind of the insane thing to do sometimes. And they both had that kind of twinkle and a little bit of that snarkiness to it. And it was like, all right, yeah. This is cool. They roll their eyes. Wonder Woman winks at the camera every time somebody is an idiot. And she's like, you can't guess I'm Diana Prince, even though I never wear a mask. Wink. I learned the glasses trick from Clark.
Can I ask, is there a particular scene from the Linda Carter show that, like, when you think about that show, it's a scene that just, it immediately pops to mind for you? Is there one like that for you?
There's not a specific one, but she had a number of shots where she just kind of looks at the camera and she's got this look like she's telling the audience, yeah, you and I both know this is crap. and that was one of the things I love, because I would have loved to have just been able to look around my own life sometimes and go, you all know this is crap, right?
Oh my God. I'm glad I'm not the only one that sometimes felt I was on a television show growing up, because totally surreal. All right, Michael. We haven't asked Michael or Jeremy yet, right?
Right.
Okay, Michael, you're up
Okay.
next.
I'm another one who can claim Spider-Man as his gateway superhero, and I'm going to show my age here quite a bit. I was first completely drawn by the costume. I thought it was really cool. Saw a comic book in a spinner rack in a drugstore. My mother got it for me.
Aww.
And it's actually how I learned to read, because she'd buy me the comics, but she wouldn't read them to me. So I said, fine, I'll read them myself. So between that and educational television on PBS at the time, I did start to learn to read through Spider-Man comics. And that was only reinforced by not just the really kind of crappy Nicholas Hammond live adventure show in the 70s, going back earlier than that. It was the Spidey Super Stories segment on the Electric Company.
Yes.
Where he would go up. He never spoke. It was all word balloons. So you'd have to read what he was saying and thinking. But it was
Oh wow.
seeing him in the classic costume. I always got mad that he was never fighting any of his real villains. It was always, oh, he's now fighting early career Morgan Freeman or mid-career Rita Moreno in some costume. But it just kept hooking me, and anytime, and then the 60s Spider-Man cartoon was in reruns on one of the channels back then. It abutted a bunch of early Japanese anime at the time, Force 5 and Star Blazers. So the foundation for my life was pretty much firmly set between comic books, PBS, and UHF television.
That is not a bad place to be at all. What about you, Jeremy?
So I can actually remember the exact comic was X-Men, classic X-Men. So it was a reprint of the original X-Men. I can't tell you which one, but it was classic X-Men number 69. And I still have it with the orange juice stain from when I first read it. And it's so gross. But so when I was younger, like I didn't read, and this is kind of my big advocacy for comic books is when I was younger, my parents did everything in their power to get me to read, and I would look at picture books all the time, and I still have my Bambi Scratch and Sniff that I loved, but it had no words in it, and so my parents were starting to get concerned that I might have developmental delays, and we would travel from North Carolina to Maine, and my mom would drive the whole way, and she basically needed me to shut up and sit down. So she would go into the grocery store and just come out with whatever comics they had, and she dumped them in front of me. And I still remember they're sitting on the passenger side floor in the car, and I would just lay down and just read them. And I remember that being the very first one, and then I dumped my McDonald's orange juice on it, and history was made.
That's tragic.
Yeah, I just repurchased it. It's like it cost like 10 cents to get it, just so I could have a clean copy in a glass case. But behind it is the gross one that no one shall never know about. But it was
of course they see an interview.
Exactly.
Or a panel.
Yeah.
First rule of Superhero Club. But later on, I did not realize that comic books were like a thing. Like I didn't know anything about them. And my parents started getting a little bit shocked when I knew random German or random Russian. And I was learning these words from X-Men. And my parents just were like, oh, fine. He's been rereading the same like 30 comic books over and over. And when I was in 5th grade, all the schools in Maine got an issue of basically it was kind of a PSA for domestic abuse and, in case your parents hit you type thing. And the main character was Spider-Man on one side and Skits from the New Mutants on the other. And I just remember her storyline. I did not care about the storyline, to be quite honest. But she had a giant bubble around her, and how often when people invade my bubble, I just want to smack them. And so it came in a school form. So I realized like, oh, people read, oh, I'm not the only one. And at the same time, I got to see superpowers. And so this just started a love affair. And then later on in the 90s, when we finally got TV, because I'm from Maine.
Doesn't have to be from Maine. I mean, I'm in shock. Your parents bought you comic books because, I mean, my brothers each got like one comic book each for Christmas one year, and that was their big present because we were, let's just say, more than a little short on cash. So.
Well, and I reread the same like handful that she brought me for probably a good year or two before I got new ones. And when my parents were like, oh, if he's not going to read books, we'll just keep him on a steady diet of comic books. And well, it made this.
I really love that. My girls read graphic novels and comics like they are going out of style, honestly. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's great. So Remy, Jeremy, you've been great. Like Jeremy has been responding to the comments, having side conversations. It's just how you do, man, and I love it. Let's see. I'm going to scroll through and see if I can find some of the questions because we've got some. I'm trying to find them here. Where are they? Oh, will the success of the MCU and the DC TV shows finally lead to more graphic novel adaptations, especially after the success of the Watchmen miniseries? What do you guys think? Are we going to see more graphic novels get adapted?
We already see it. Lock and Key just came to Netflix. And that's based off Joe Hill's comics. So
yeah,
I think more being adapted. We just don't know that they're graphic novels.
Yeah. Preacher is another one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
There's a movie on Hulu called I Killed Giants, which I thought was going to be some rocking fantasy adventure, and it turns out it's actually this rather profound, heartfelt drama about a girl dealing with tragedy in her life, and it turns out it was a graphic novel written by Joe Kelly, which I didn't know until it got to the end credits, and I'm like, oh well, now I may have to. So yeah, there's a lot of stealth adaptations already out there.
Yeah, I think they're actually more palatable to Hollywood than superhero stories are anyway, because a lot of the superhero stories are drawn out over, year or so, an arc that just lasts a really long time. Whereas a lot of graphic novels have, more condensed story that is more easily translatable to movies.
Not to mention a previously published item has a built-in audience already where they can go, hey, we've got this thing you love. Come see how we mess it up.
And a graphic novel also comes with a built-in storyboard. So I'm sitting down with a financer who has no imagination whatever. And I can say, well, if you can't imagine it, look, someone did it for you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
It's funny, I watched Watchmen and then I read the graphic novel, so I did it backwards. And I understood after I read the graphic novel why people were so pissed off. And I could see it. You could tell that they drew a lot of these really beautifully and very like powerful images from the graphic novel, and they just kind of plunked them onto film, which oftentimes doesn't work. Like if you're talking about like a prose novel, like the first Harry Potter book, they tried to do that and it just didn't quite work. But I think a graphic novel lends itself more to that because it's I would say more than partially a visual medium anyway. So yeah, it's probably a bit easier to adapt to film actually.
Look at Captain America 3, where I'm sorry, I think the movie's kind of crap, but all I watched it for was for that iconic cover image of the repulsor ray against Captain America's shield. It was down to the lighting was stolen straight from the cover of the comic. So I mean, you can tell like they're paying homage to the source material. Sorry, guys.
Taylor, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I definitely just agree with what everyone else shared. You see it. I mean, you're seeing a lot of it, even like with the different Batman cartoon movies that are coming out, and other things along those lines. And it's fascinating. There was a show on Netflix I watched recently as well, which was adapted from a graphic novel, and it was about this girl that has superpowers, and she doesn't want to have them, and she's basically it was. I forget what it was called off the top of my head.
I'm not okay with this.
I'm not okay with this. Yeah, and that was adapted from a graphic novel. So I mean, it's and it happens all the time. So it just speaks to the fact that that particular medium is something that can be easily translated over to movie or television.
I am thinking though that we're seeing a shift from superhero graphic novels to not still superhero elements. So like, I'm not okay with this I absolutely loved it. I was really mad with where they ended it. I wanted more, but there's all those superhero elements, but it's not capes, cowls, and this righteous sense of duty. Like we're seeing like Lock and Key, like these genre comics, or we're seeing I'm Not Okay With This, which was kind of a teen coming of age, maybe horror. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like they're more the superhero aspect is more of a background aspect to the general story, I think. And that might be why they're not quite as recognizable, having, in terms of like where they came from, the source material and everything. We have one more question from Misty. Has anyone else realized that we've reached a point in superheroes in which the actors who played them in the adaptations have quote unquote aged out of the role? Who will play them next? So this is an interesting one. And Remy, I saw some of your responses about Hugh Jackman, great Old Man Logan, but also the fact that Patrick Stewart can still play Xavier. He's my old man crush.
Trish and I talked about this. My dream cast right now is no one needs another Batman. I'm sorry. I'm done with it. But what we do need is Batman Beyond, and we need Michael Keaton to come in as the old Bruce Wayne and mentor a new spunky teenage version. And I've already bought my ticket for that. So Hollywood, go make it.
Oh man, I'm with you. Like Batman Beyond is my favorite thing associated with the Batman universe.
It's brilliant.
The Return of the Joker is possibly the best animated feature DC. You get I waited for the uncut version, and if you've never seen it, it is absolutely jaw-dropping at times.
I haven't, I'll have to look for that because I haven't even heard of that. The Return
Batman
of
Beyond
Joker?
Return of the Joker, it was actually the first version that was released, was edited down and altered because some executive who didn't get it wanted it to be a little more child-friendly because they thought that's what the target audience was. And it was okay, but I kept hearing word of the original uncut version. I'm like, no, there's going to be enough fandom and they're going to release the uncut version. And they finally did. I didn't even bother renting it. I just bought the damn thing, trusting it would be amazing. And it was, because it was a very tragic and at times horrifying story. And even though it was told with restraint, they use storytelling rather than graphic violence to get the point across a lot of times, but you still knew exactly what was going on, and it was mind-blowing at times that they were actually telling such a mature and rather dark story.
So this has got me thinking of a question I want to kind of ask off of the back of that question. Misty, I like this question. Because you got me thinking. Older superheroes. We don't really see a lot of superhero stories with people that look like they're over 40, whatever that looks like. So, Jeremy, you mentioned Batman Beyond. Karen, Taylor, can you guys think of any superhero stories where you would want to see them being brought to, whether it's animated or live action, that are older superheroes, to tell those stories? Is there any stories like that, or any superheroes that you'd like to see in their more golden years fighting crime?
Well, I mean, going back to Batman, you actually do see some older Batman stories as well, like the one series that was done when he was in his 40s or 50s, or actually a bit later than that, really 50s or 60s. And he's fighting an older version of Superman, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, some of the Spider-Man comics have also shown an older Spider-Man, where he has like a teenage daughter, and I think that's also interesting. I think in general, the one thing that stands out to me about a lot of comic books is you never really do see the character's age, and it's the one thing that kind of bothers me, because it's like, well, at some point they gotta change, and they don't. And so I think it's a good thing to introduce into the fiction in general. So, having older characters that have superpowers and being able to include them is an important thing, I think, and something we need more of, because we also have this weird, at least in the US, we have this weird issue around aging where maybe we just need to get over it, because we're all going to age, we're all going to die. It's just part of life.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Taylor, there's a really great X-Men series in which Chris Claremont went back to his original run of X-Men and where he got fired or left. And from there on out, he let the X-Men age. And so you're seeing the story with Storm, who's in her 50s, and all of these much older X-Men and their children and sometimes grandchildren. And then after that, they even did a spin-off series of it called Next Gen. And it's about the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because at this point, the X-Men, when they started, Storm was in her 30s when she joined the X-Men, and so 60 something years later, she's old enough to be a grandmother, and so her grandkids are now part of the story, and Grandma Rowe comes in, and it was just a really great way to bring in older characters and it's still at the same time fresh.
Karen, do you have anything, like I think I heard you starting to talk at the same time as Taylor. Do you have any superheroes you'd like to see, represented as older, or anything you want to add around this?
Assuming it's a character where it makes sense for them to logically age, given their species, power, explanation, whatever, I'm pretty much cool with any of them, provided that they allow the older superhero not to be like a complete wreck in all those years you don't see. I mean, I liked Into the Spider-Verse. I didn't care for how Peter Parker's life is totally in the toilet, and Peter Parker has lost hope, and he's just a mess. That's not what I want to think of Peter Parker. I want my Peter Parker to be like, yeah, well, we made rent again by the skin of our teeth, but I got this kid I'm mentoring. He's great. If I could only get him to stop graffitiing everywhere, I'd like to see them coming from a relatively well-adjusted adult life where they're not completely screwed over, especially if their life in the comic books or whatever, if they were somebody who had the big happy wedding scene in a comic book where they did the big somebody's getting married and everybody's attending, and here's like a picture of every possible superhero who might attend the wedding so that every fanboy and girl can go, they have so and so. I want those people to still be married. I want them to have kids or grandkids. I don't want it to be like a certain sci-fi series where the happy endings of the first three movies were like completely erased by the events of later movies. It's like, they were only happy for like 5 minutes after the movie ended, and then we screwed their lives over. I don't want to see that happen to my superheroes too. I mean, they're superheroes. they've had rough lives. They've had horrible things happen to them. I'm okay with them having to deal with PTSD or all the other stuff that would happen given that. But I also want them to not just have a life that's total poop, to be
I
polite.
agree. Yeah, well, and there's some superheroes that you're like, oh my God, how much more crap are they going to pile onto this person?
Yeah. Yeah, and the ones who couldn't make up their minds on something, I want them to have made up their mind at some point. You know, if they're perpetually going between two love interests, pick someone. Pick a third person. Decide that you're fine on your own or you're in love with this pigeon. You know, whatever. Make a choice.
Don't worry, because no matter who you pick, in 5 issues will die. So you get the other one too.
Yeah.
But you've still got their alternate universe self.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. With this actually, Karen, this is you brought up a brilliant segue to one of the questions. And I'm sorry if you're type A, I'm skipping around now. What are some tropes that you guys feel are totally overused? So the examples I gave you guys when I sent you the questions were women in refrigerators, women with female heroes with passive powers, the big muscle guy with the anger issues. Like, what are some tropes that you just cringe, and how have you done differently in your own works? I want you to also not only talk about what you're kind of over with superhero stories in general, but also in your own works. How have you avoided that? And let's start with Matt.
Alrighty. Well, when I saw your question, my first thought was like, are refrigerated girls a thing? Because I didn't know this was this was a trope to stick women in refrigerators. But
did you? Oh, you know what? Actually, I should probably explain that. Do you mind, Matt, if I go in really quickly?
Oh no, go for it.
Okay. So if anybody watching is not familiar with the term fridging, it came up from, I want to say it was Gail Simone, but I might be wrong.
He came up with the term, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So she came up with the term fridging after a comic book issue where Green Lantern's girlfriend was murdered and stuffed in a refrigerator for him to find by one of the villains. And so she went and she actually cataloged all the women, heroes, girlfriends, aunts, mothers, grandmothers of heroes who had been murdered, tortured, raped, and various other horrible things in order to give the male hero some kind of purpose or arc.
Yeah.
And so the website Women in Refrigerators was born. So that's your quick history lesson. Go, Matt.
Okay. I'm so embarrassed because I love Gail Simone, but I had no idea. I have 2 that I try to avoid. The first one is typical superhero names. So throughout my writing, you'll find that I don't really assign a superhero name to a lot of my characters. Starting on the Circle War series, like the main character's name was August, and that's all anybody ever knew him as. He didn't have a name, even though he wanted one really badly, and he thought of his own and tried to get those to catch on, and they never did. So I tried to stay away from that, and you know, unless it evolves organically from the story. With like with Prism, her name is Kyla, but the name Prism stuck to her because that was the project associated with her. So people started, you know, calling her Prism because she was the subject of that sort of science project. So in that sense, you know, that's where a name makes sense to me, as opposed to something like Spider-Man or Batman, you know, something literal. The other thing I try to avoid, and I will forever avoid this if I can help it, is love triangles. I can't stand them. I cannot stand love triangles. So you'll never see those in any of my books unless I put it in there specifically to make fun of it, which I can totally see myself doing. But yeah, love triangles just bore me to death. I can't handle them.
I am ashamed to say that I wrote a love triangle in my first trilogy, and I didn't even realize it until after I'd already done it. I was like, damn it. Because I'm not the biggest fan of them either. but I was like, crap, I wanted to do this so differently. And I ended up writing a freaking love triangle.
Whoops-a-doodle.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't we go, how about Taylor? What are some tropes that you were just kind of over, and how are you avoiding those in your own work?
Well, I think one of the tropes that I take issue with is where a hero just seems to always know how to use their powers really well, and they never have any struggles or difficulties or issues. And so for me, the Learning How to Be a Hero series was an exploration of two things. What happens when you have a hero who doesn't necessarily have the most competence with their powers and needs some help? Like, he used to go to remedial flying school at the very beginning. You know, he needs help. He's not flying all that well, and he's going to lose his superhero license and have to work at the Weather Bureau. No one wants to do that. And then, you know, the other part of it is examining kind of their values and beliefs. At what point do, you know, your morals and stuff get in the way of actually doing the right thing, because you're trying to do the right thing, but you're so stuck on this superhero code that you're not necessarily examining the real human impact it has and the consequence it has on other people. And so it's not avoiding it so much as it's exploring, well, what happens when, okay, you're trying to follow that superhero code, and the end result is that you actually have a devastating impact on the lives of lots of people, because yeah, you were doing the right thing, but maybe it wasn't really the right thing in quite the way you thought it was, and you need to at least take some responsibility for it.
I like that. I don't think a lot of people actually think about that. And I love exploring that moral question with superheroes. Yeah. How about Karen? What are some tropes that you are absolutely over, and how do you avoid those in your own work?
Oh, I could rant about this all day. But, you know, I'll try to restrain myself.
Okay. How about just two, your top two?
Women in refrigerators is a big one, of course. I try to avoid that one as much as possible. As a subset, I particularly loathe it when rape defines an entire character. Why did she become a superhero? Because somebody raped her. She certainly had no desire to use her powers for the benefit of others without that motivation. Why'd she eat that ice cream? Because she was raped. No, no. I mean, I do have a character who has rape as part of her background, and it does impact her, but it's not everything. It's an additional issue that she has to deal with, and honestly, her friends have to deal with from time to time, because she is more sensitive about certain things than they are. But it's not her primary motivator in her life. She has goals. You know, she has dreams. She has character flaws that have nothing to do with it. Most of my characters have some kind of trauma in their past, and while I can't say what exactly due to both time and not very surprising spoilers, it's not all rape and dead loved ones. So that is one of mine. For a second one of my personal pet peeves is NPC cannon fodder where their deaths are meaningless.
Sorry, the phrasing really, like, I just had this visual and I knew exactly what you meant.
You know, they're bystanders with no agency who act like a herd instead of individuals and are just there to be mowed down, you know, by the good guy or the bad guy. How good is your good guy if he's not even trying to keep down the collateral damage?
Yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's a couple of times where bad guys have escaped in my books because my heroes are trying so hard to avoid collateral damage that the bad guys do something and my heroes are like, crap, the people over there, shoot, one of the bystanders is going to shoot me if I get too close to them, but I need to get by them. And, you know, so yeah, some of the bystanders run, some of them scream and stare. Some of them pick up their iPhones and film everything, you know. But, I mean, I kill NPCs. I'll be honest. I do not have a deathless series. But it's not meaningless. It's not just look how bad my character is.
Yeah, it's not an abattoir with mindless characters just kind of going through it. Yeah,
and that is a personal pet peeve of mine. I have read authors who have an incredible body count that have made it work somehow. But it is something that bugs me. And now I'll just like hush because somebody else gets to rant for a bit.
Who has it? I can't. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep. Okay, Jeremy and Michael. Rochambeau. I'm just kidding. Jeremy,
I
you
can't
go
kick
first.
Jeremy in the crotch from my house. Come on. Different Rochambeau. Sorry.
Yeah, we're different. Totally different. Jeremy, you go ahead and go, and then Michael.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny because so my biggest pet peeve is a coming out story. I literally am the gay superhero author, and I mean that in both ways. My gay characters do not need to come out of the closet. They're out of the closet. They're in their mid to late 20s. It's not like this is a new epiphany, and writing it as here's their coming out origin story doesn't need to happen. And I feel the same way about their superhero-dom. My main character in one of his opening scenes discovers he has powers. He doesn't get enough time to react. There are so many events that pile up. This isn't about him coming to grips with it. He's thrust into a position, and his reaction is to the position that he's in and the all the events unfolding. There's only one or two slow moments where he gets to stop and go, well, what do I do about here? And I get kind of miffed with that when your world is so rich and your characters are vast and different. Like, I want to hear all those other tales to be told. Now, on the flip side of that, the comic book I'm working on is about a gay kid who comes to grip with superpowers. So, I made a rule, I broke it.
But it's in the how you break it, really.
Oh, broke it exactly as I would mock someone else for doing it. So,
I love it. Okay, Michael, you're up.
Okay. I've got two. One is superhero specific. One is more general storytelling related. The superhero specific one, characters who just don't stay dead.
Oh, yes.
Corporate superhero comics, no one's ever going to stay dead, because once they get a fan base and you can merchandise the hell out of them, you can kill them a million times, but they're always going to come back. And I've seen that a little in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The one good thing about Robert Downey Jr. leaving is Tony Stark is likely to stay dead. I'm, as much as I love Black Widow, I hope that she is still dead.
Yeah.
I think that the way they cheated Gamora back to life, I like Gamora. I'm glad she's going to be in the next Guardians. But, I mean, Coulson's come back twice now from the dead. It robs the story of stakes and consequences. It's toothless. These are supposed to be noble heroes who sacrifice themselves, but who can really get invested with that when you're fairly in the comic book? They're going to come back, so it doesn't matter. I see characters dying, and I'm like, okay, I give this minimum 6 months, maximum 2 years. They're going to be. Sometimes it takes longer. It took Barry Allen and Hal Jordan a decade or two to come back after they died. But they always come back. And, so in my books, dead is dead. I've flirted with that trope once under very specific circumstances, but any character who has actually died, they're not going to make some surprising, shocking return to life.
So do you think they should start just sending really cheap bouquets to all the superhero funerals and the comic books?
Classic flowers. They just pass it along. It's like a Christmas fruitcake.
Here's a get well soon fruitcake for your death.
Sorry you're dead. See you in a few weeks.
In the last time Jean Grey died, there is this amazing scene where Cyclops is standing at the grave, and
I know
Wolverine.
this. Yep.
Wolverine walks up and makes a comment about, so it's really sad that she's gone, and he just turns around and walks away. He goes, give it a whatever, she'll be back. And Emma Frost is constantly making the, oh, is that big explosion? Is that Jean?
Yeah.
Like, because who stays dead?
Everyone. So that's the superhero specific one. The other trope that I absolutely loathe in storytelling is characters who keep a secret from each other for the sake of keeping the plot. One of the reasons I got sick of Supernatural is because every season would have been half as long. All you need, instead of the scene where it's, you okay, Sammy? Yeah, fine. Two guys driving for hours with each other. They know there's something wrong and they don't talk about it. If they just have a conversation, season's half as short.
Yeah. Or The Flash. How many seasons of The Flash would have been over in 13 episodes if they could have just told each other the truth?
13 episodes, maybe 2.
Maybe 2. Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
seriously.
I had early on in the story, and I did this very deliberately, I had the scene where one characters were keeping a secret from another one. It finally came out. There was the big emotional fallout, and they immediately resolved, we're not doing this anymore. No matter how much it hurts, we're just going to be honest with each other. And that's been throughout the series, that the characters they have a complete honesty agreement with each other. And I think it's a bit challenging for a storyteller to not have that crutch to support them, because now a plot point that could be drawn out forever. No, they got to address it right away. Where does that take the story next?
Yeah, I love that you called it a crutch, because I think a lot of these tropes that everybody has brought up, that's what they are. They're crutches. And there are times I think that you can use them. Like, there are times when two characters are not going to be honest with each other for a very plausible reason. But if you overuse them, because it's easy, that's when it gets bad.
There was a Mary Sue article quite some time ago talking about that trope in relation to the most recent season of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, because there were characters not talking to each other, but instead of being a cheap plot device, it was actually character driven and made sense in the context of the characters and the story. It was a really good analysis.
Yeah, that show actually is a great, I don't know, I almost feel like that's a great masterclass in just stories and plots and how to write women, honestly. Like, that's just such a good show.
Oh, it is.
Okay, so okay, you guys get to choose. Do you want to do the lightning round, or do you want to do one more of the questions on the list? Because the lightning round could be fun.
I forget what the other question was on the list.
Well, we've got, there's superhero happy place. What's your superhero happy place and why? Or we could do a lightning round.
I think we should do a lightning round. Let's get a little risque here.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna pick Karen. Let's see. Superman or Batman?
Bats.
Nice.
I like somebody who achieves something. The man sets a goal and he gets to it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. All right, Matt, pyrokinesis or flying?
Pyrokinesis.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger?
Heath Ledger.
Ooh. All right, Taylor, Guardians or Avengers?
Guardians. I love the outer space, I mean, it's just, you're out there, you're exploring all kinds of stuff. It's more fun.
All right, and Jeremy, Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel?
There's no right answer.
It's
do I want
okay.
to
The answer is
do I want
yes.
to kill my father or my mother?
That's a different lightning round.
Captain Marvel. I'm gonna go Captain Marvel. Sorry,
Okay.
everyone. So sorry.
That was the lightning round. Jeremy, I'm going to defer to you. You've actually been monitoring the comments way more than I have. Are there questions that we have missed?
So there was a little bit of a talk about genre. We had a little conversation about horror showing up.
Ooh.
Does anyone know of any other horror related superhero graphic novel adaptations that have happened?
Not adaptations. But if you want superhero horror, I've mentioned this before. The current run of The Immortal Hulk is fantastic because it is the Hulk done as a horror comic. I would love to see it adapted because it's got the last page of pretty much every issue is what the hell am I looking at moment. It would be kind of, I think it would be kind of a tough sell to the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it is so dark and occasionally gruesome. Because it's still kind of a family-friendly cinematic franchise, which is a shame because it's the most radically different take on the character I've seen in ages, and it's up there with the Peter David run for me.
Wow. Anybody else have anything?
I was going to say, again, not an adaptation, but Alan Moore's run of The Swamp Thing is a great example of horror. There are some really interesting issues in that one that definitely well, let's just say I'm going to want to experience that in real life.
Matt, Jeremy, Karen, do you have any horror recommendations?
Oh man, I would say, I don't know if people would classify as horror or not, but most anything Garth Ennis does is kind of horrific, if not horror in general. But I think he's a great writer. I love Preacher is one of my favorite series of all times. I don't know that I would recommend Crossed, but if you're into that brutal sort of horror, that is certainly brutal and horrific. But I think he's a great storyteller who happens to tell sort of horror stories.
Okay.
I think as far as horror for a comic, and I'm not going to say horror isn't scary, it would translate more like atmospheric horror, is early New Mutants when Legion becomes part of the characters, one of the ongoing roster. And I think the Legion solo run was also very chaotic and dark, and they really Chris Claremont had absolutely no oversight, and so they decided to draw it as if the person was experiencing schizophrenia on the page, and I thought that was magnificent. The stories were really complicated to follow and often didn't make sense, but it was visual eye candy in a really weird way.
The New Mutants movie is supposed to be adapted from the Demon Bear saga. It's supposed to be more horror oriented. So
it was supposed to come out like 38 years ago too.
Yeah.
Which now it's going to come out 38 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. Karen, do you have anything to add?
Well, I know there's a Legion TV show.
Yeah.
I don't watch it because I don't do horror. It's not my bag, baby.
Mine neither.
So closest I would come, and I know a lot of people don't consider it horror, is I think of The Watchmen as horror. Because it's a horrible world.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and people make terrible choices. And I know that that's part of the point, but to me, it reads like horror. And again, this is from a total non-horror watching person, so no offense meant to Watchmen fans or horror fans. That's just my thing.
I think actually you bring up kind of a good point, is what's horror to one person might not be quite as frightening to another. So it probably depends greatly on your sensitivity level, because I'm right there with you, Karen. I can't do anything scary. The only reason that I saw Cabin in the Woods, it's because I've been a huge Joss Whedon fan for forever. But I like
more comedy.
Oh no, for me that was really freaking frightening. The first zombie movie I ever saw was Shaun of the Dead, and I didn't get any of the jokes. I was like, okay. Anything else in the questions, Jeremy, that you saw that?
No, now we're going on a tirade about Legion. Good job with that one, Karen.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I am magical.
I am convinced you are magical. Anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get the chance to say? Anybody at all about any of the questions? Anybody have anything they want to throw into the ring really quickly before we wrap up?
I'm going to go back and take back my answer, and now we're going to go with Wonder Woman.
No.
You're violating Michael's his
yeah. He's playing the thunder round.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing right there.
I'm resurrecting the question, and
you're gonna give me. Jeremy and I actually are podcast partners, and partners for superherofiction.com and a whole bunch of other things. And so I know he's going to give me absolute crap about this later. Sorry, dude, I saved the hardest one for you. All right, well, I do want to say really quickly, thank you to everybody that tuned in. This was so much fun. And thank you to all of you panelists for giving of your time, which is plentiful for some, but if you have kids at home, might not be that plentiful. And I just want to say thank you for being on the panel. This was so much fun. So many of you I know online. I've seen Jeremy and Michael kind of online face-to-face before, but the rest of you I haven't. So it's just wonderful meeting you. Those of you that are watching, please be sure to visit the Virtual Artist Alley and check out the virtual vendor tables. They will be up, I believe, for another day or so. And visit superherofiction.com for all of these wonderful people's books. Buy their books, read them on Kindle Unlimited if they're on Kindle Unlimited. These are awesome people who write awesome stories.
Speaking as someone who's actually read at least one book of everyone on the panel, I think all of you are on Kindle Unlimited except for me.
Oh.
Now I'm gonna blush.
Well, yours, I actually read your first one from that anthology where we were in together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the big
I guess I have
superhero
read
one.
quite a few people.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had read Trish's before that, but I hadn't read yours until then. And then I read everything in the anthology, and I read a lot.
That's good.
A very good thing.
Thank you for reading our books, Karen. I've been trying to get through all of the books on the website. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to be here forever. There's like,
I just keep adding them.
You do. Keep doing it. Keep writing books, everybody. All right. So,
can we also say a quick thank you to Trish? Thank you for hosting this and for putting this together.
Thank you for herding cats.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
It's always nice when someone else does the work.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. Speaking of somebody else doing the work, we actually have an author friend of mine, Virginia McLean, who was the absolutely fabulous person that got all of this together and kind of did QuaranCon. She is in the Zoom room with us, and she wants to say a quick message to everybody to kind of wrap up the con. So hi, Virginia.
Hi, everyone. I just listened to that whole panel. It was awesome. Thank you all so much for doing that. Really, really entertaining. And you guys, I think, win the prize for having the most active chat out of all the panels, like while they're live. Just the sheer volume of messages showing up there and people going back and forth. That was really fun.
Are you implying that comics fans have opinions?
What?
I would never dare.
I will say, I did say that X-Men number Dark Phoenix was the best one, and that's where things went.
And
south.
things just devolved from there, basically. Way to go, Jeremy.
Yeah.
But Yeah, thank all of you so much for coming and doing this. I have a couple overall just like end of con comments, if you guys don't mind me hijacking the final panel. And I would
Best
just
for last.
like to, yeah, heck yes. And I just wanted to make a few
Oh, and we froze.
comments. With what? Okay, so I want to start by just thanking all of my volunteers. So many people have thanked me for organizing this, and I really appreciate that. I do feel like I'm certain there are a few days that I've missed in my life because I was organizing this con. However, none of it would have happened without all the volunteers that I found. And so I'm just gonna do a quick credits here. But huge thank you to Pam Livingston. She basically organized all the panels, made them happen. Huge thank you to Belle McQuaddy, who brought in the majority of our readers and organized them. To Peach Hurtado, who did a ton of our graphic design work. She did a bunch of work on the website. Erica Drayton, who has been a huge tech support. She tested and ran all the Zoom stuff with me beforehand and then helped me problem solve stuff when it came up. And she also has been one of the tech coordinators throughout this whole thing, putting on a third of the panels on and off, attaching them to YouTube. Miracle Wong, who also came in late. I asked for help with the whole tech organization piece. We needed, like I said, people to connect Zoom to YouTube, and she showed up and did a great job with a third of all the stuff we had there. Isabel Suarez, who helped with the short fiction contest and a number of other pieces, including branding, etc. Phil Parker, I'm just going to list the following people. Phil Parker, Amanda Justice, Sonia Black, Ashley Capes, Noor El Shanti, Patrick Leclerc, and a bunch of people whose names I'm probably missing. Those are the ones I was able to find in time to make notes. But thank you so much to all of those volunteers. Like seriously, none of this would have happened without them. And I also want to thank all of our panelists and all of our readers and all of our featured artists for giving their time for everyone's entertainment. And for doing an amazing job. I've been blown away by the quality of every single event that we've had. It's been amazing. I would also like to thank everyone who entered into any of our contests. We actually wound up really only running 2 of them. We were trying for 3. The third one sort of fell short. But the cosplay contest and the short fiction contest ran. I will have the cosplay contest winners to announce later. But right now, I can tell you the winners of the short fiction contest. So the top 3 stories, and I'm going to go in reverse order. So coming in third was a beautiful story called New Hope by J.E. Hannaford. Coming in second was an interesting take on the theme of isolation that I really enjoyed. Old Superheroes Never Die by Alex McGillivray. And I think actually you guys, this panel would probably really enjoy reading that one. And finally, our winner, the #1 spot, was called Last Day at the Observatory by A.M. Justice. So congratulations to those top 3. You will all get, be in touch with you soon about putting you in touch with the editors who are offering critiques to our top slots there. And like I said, I'll announce the cosplay winners later. Finally, let's see. Sorry, I have notes. I'm checking them.
You're fine.
Lots of people have asked if we're doing this again and when we're doing it again. I am touched, flattered, and blown away by the positive response this con has gotten. And when I have recovered fully in a week or 2, I can give a more concrete answer about when and whether we're doing this again. I will say if we do it again, I hope that it's still an online con, because it seems like a lot of people have really appreciated a chance to connect with people from all over the world in the same convention, and that's been amazing. But I hope that it doesn't need to be QuaranCon anymore. Hopefully we can come up with a different name. Hopefully we'll all be free and wandering the streets again, and we can still do this because it's fun, not because it's the only way to get together. But yeah, I don't know yet. Really, ask me in a week. And I'm also, in terms of accessibility, which is one piece that I loved about this con, it enabled a lot of people who can't normally make it to cons to come to this one. And I've had a lot of people appreciate that. And that was one of the goals, and I'm really glad about it. I am hoping to add closed captioning to 100% of our panels in retrospect. I was going to try to do it live. It was going to cost $3,000. There was no way we were going to be able to do it, with any level of quality. YouTube has an automatic thing that's apparently terrible and not even worth doing. So I'm going to ask for, if anyone wants to volunteer to transcribe one of our panels, please let me know. You can do it at your leisure from your home in whatever amount of time you've got, because now that it's not a live thing, you don't even have to be able to type quickly or listen well. You can just do it in your spare time, 5 minutes at a time. But I would love to get them all transcribed. I'm going to do as many as I can, but I can't do all of them unless we just want them done in time for next year's con. So if there is one. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please get in touch and let me know. And a huge thank you to our audience. We had so many people show up and support all of these panels. We had great questions that were asked. We had people who showed up to almost every event. Misty 306, I'm looking at you.
Seriously.
And, yeah, she's amazing. And so many great people participating and showing up and asking good questions and just watching. It's so fun to watch the viewing and the likes rack up on all of these. And I really appreciate all of you audience members. And again, people have been saying, oh, thank you so much, Virginia. What, whatever. I've gotten a lot of appreciation. It's almost hard to take. I hugely appreciate that appreciation to get really meta and weird, but also I'm just really happy to have provided, if any of these events made you smile in days that are otherwise a little short on smiles, that's been the whole goal. So huge thank you just to everybody, hugs all around, and yeah, I really can't thank my volunteers enough. So okay, I think I can breathe now.
Okay. Thank you, Virginia.
That sounded like one breath.
Yeah.
Was any of that intelligible, or should I go back and do it again at a slower pace?
I think you were on mute. Do you want to repeat?
Oh,
Just do it over again.
It
She
reminded
might
me.
need to mainline some more coffee.
Yeah.
ready when
It
you
re-
are, CB.
It reminded me of an awards speech. Oh my God, I have to get through 25 names in 60 seconds.
That's totally how it feels. I'm just going to stop the actual live stream now so we can
All
do
right.
that.